Welcome to the Connecting with Care podcast, where we believe in valuing humanity, engaging spirituality, and promoting equity through our teaching, research, and service. I'm Curtis Isozaki.
And I'm Zach Winterode. Today, we're diving into the critical work of cultivating community and hospitality at the Garland School of Social Work with Associate Dean Kerri Fisher.
Kerri is a clinical associate professor and leader in fostering an inclusive and supportive community of belonging at GSSW. She shares insight into the beauty of our community, and I'm deeply grateful for her presence and practice in this work.
She also shares personal stories of healing and support within the GSSW community and the essential need for ethical social work practice that is effective and expansive in our world today. Let's get started.
Hello, Kerri. Thank you so much for joining us on our podcast today. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Well, our conversation today is going to be around diversity, equity, and inclusion in the Garland School of Social Work. Really excited to lean in to engaging in this. And we've had several conversations around this topic even today. And so really our hope for this podcast is that, our community will be able to really hear the heart, but really the commitment that the Garland School of Social Work has to diversity, equity, and inclusion by showcasing various initiatives, programs, and policies that really foster what it looks like to have an inclusive environment and really provide an authentic, in-depth representation of like who we are. And really at the heart of it is belonging, right?
Yeah.
And how we engage in this conversation. And so, Kerri, would you be able to introduce yourself and then we'll dive into some rapid fire questions?
Yeah, of course. Yes. My name is Kerri Fisher. I'm the Associate Dean for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion and a clinical associate professor here. I get to teach the human diversity and social justice classes and the human diversity and leadership classes at the undergraduate level. And I've been at the Garland School for about 10 years now.
Okay, fantastic. And so diving into our rapid fire questions, you've been here for 10 years. And so with that, living in Waco, is that right?
Yes. And
so what is one word to describe where you live?
Emerging. I think, that's the one word I would say. Do you want me to elaborate?
If you want, that sounds great.
I just think Waco is sort of in a beautiful, cuspy space where we are still a medium-sized city. That's just my definition of medium. And there's like lots of growth in things like arts and food and collaborations. And we're also not like this big urban place that is moving at the speed of light. So I think it's growing in ways that are great and becoming a new thing every day.
Yeah. And in that emerging city, we have one of our favorite places that we like to go to. You like to call it your second office away from your wonderful office that we're sitting in here today in the Garland School of Social Work. And that office is CHA Community. Shout out to our friends, Jaja, Devin, the work that they do here in the city with Asian Leader Network. And so long, elaborate intro to a really fun rapid fire question because they're dear friends to us. What is your go-to order at CHA Community?
I'm so glad you asked. My go-to order is a whey cocoa. So it's like a coconut tea. And that generally comes with oat milk, which I do like, but I actually get half and half in my order. And if I'm really living my best life, I get 100% sweetness.
Love it. So friends, students, you know what to get, Kerri, over at CHA Community. You know what our office is. And so with that being said, one final question. What is one book you're currently loving?
Well, I am so sad to report that I'm in a real slump. I've been just like reading half of books and putting them down, which is really unlike me. There's something in the air. So instead, I'm just going to tell you one of my go-to favorites that never disappoints me. And that is Consolations by David White. I have it here on my desk. And it is basically an ode to language, to words. So each page is like, it might be the word loneliness. Mm-hmm. And there's this like beautiful, maybe 3-page very rich spiritual reflection on loneliness. And it always leaves you with a certain amount of depth and solace. In fact, solace is in the subtitle. So I really, as a word lover, that's my one that I can always depend on.
It's so sweet that in those moments you can cling to the books that you love.
Yes.
Or the book that you love, but then have permission to say, you know what, I'm going to put this book down that I'm reading, start another one, take that one. You know what? I'm going to hop into another one. Yeah. I feel like I'm going to be in that kind of season, this break, just kind of refreshing on some different areas, pick some books up, put some down. So, so good. So diving into really our podcast on diversity, equity, and inclusion, want to start off with reflecting on what we do here in the Garland School of Social Work. And so one of our first questions, how have you seen the Garland School of Social Work prepare social workers for worldwide service and leadership?
Yeah. At like my truest professional identity in our context is really teacher, like above all the other things. And so when I think of this question, I really think about what we're doing curricularly. And so I think in the last few years, we've done a major effort toward thinking about who is represented in our curriculum. So that means not only like, do we have clients represented across a variety of races, ethnicities, religions, all the various identities, but also like our students hearing from authors, scholars, practitioners who represent a wide range of ways to do things. Because I think when we are in the practice of learning and hearing from all sorts of people, like what is their practice of social work and their art of social work, then we are better prepared to engage all sorts of clients, colleagues, and communities in the future. So I think curricularly, we have been really trying to make sure that our training matches the wide diversity of people that we see as being dignified and worthy of our thoughts and our listening. So that's one thing. And then I think we also put people in a really wide range of internships that allow people to learn generalizable skills that are going to exist in any global context, but then also to learn the importance of context. Like what does a certain context require of me in terms of my micro, meso, and macro level skills? And so I think there's a ton of ways that we prepare students for worldwide service. But I think in many ways it starts with how are you getting educated and from whom are you hearing?
I love the phrase that, education doesn't just happen in the classroom, but it is holistic. It involves a variety of different programs. It involves life. It also transcends in the online space through phone calls with friends and the online MSW program to going to a coffee shop or a child community, and just informal dialogue is a part of just adult learning. And so with that, there are several initiatives and programs here in GSSW. And so would you be able to share what are some initiatives or programs at GSSW that exemplifies its commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Well, I think the best example of that is that we have a permanent diversity, equity, inclusion committee, which not everyone does. And what that means is that every semester, every month, we have people gathered from all of our other committees and major leadership groups coming together to think about diversity, equity, inclusion goals, progress, and regression, whatever it might be happening. So it never is off the menu, right? Like when you have a situated permanent committee who says like, we're looking at the state of DEI in our school, then that means every year I'm hearing back from each committee about their DEI goals for the next year and for the next midterm, like 3 to 5 years. And so that means at the policy and process level, there's a constant audit going on of how we improve. So I think that's the number one thing in my role. But in addition to that, I would say we have the C3I program here, which has done phenomenal work in the last few years, helping our community, congregations, and students be able to learn more about how to be effective and inclusive in terms of LGBTQ individuals in congregations and beyond, people who have experienced trauma, people who are disabled. We're getting so much robust training about like what the voice of the people tells us about how to practice appropriately for, again, a wide variety of people in the pews, in the client context, wherever we're trying to serve. And then one other thing I would say is we have our GML program, which educates learners from a variety of countries across the globe, and with the intention of them being the experts and leaders back in their own home countries, rather than having a sort of different sending model that sort of maybe centers someone out of context as the leader or as the expert. We're training and equipping people to go back to their home countries. And by the way, not only go back to their home countries as experts, but also to increase our expertise of a wide range of cultural and national, global perspectives on things, so that we also don't get too centered in thinking that something is the right way of doing social work practice when it might be the American way, or it might be the Southern way, even if we're located at the residential campus. And so I think those are some initiatives that come to mind.
Yeah. Kerri, and just thank you for just the ways that you partner, collaborate, support, and really lead these committees. It's so significant and important. You've mentioned C3I as well as GML. And so just such an important work. And so I'm thankful for you, and just again, conversations we've had, and our community will get to hear from C3I in this podcast series, as well as from Jennifer Dickey and GML. Yes. So they'll get to expand upon that as well. They're the ones doing some of that work that you had mentioned, which is fantastic. And so kind of diving a little deeper and just like the overall student experience, how does the Garland School of Social Work create an inclusive environment that supports students from diverse backgrounds?
Well, I want to answer that first by saying what is our approach to doing that.
Yeah, that's great.
We kind of have these 4 major approaches, which is that we take an intersectional approach, meaning that we don't want to be trendy with our inclusion. We want to consider the multiple layers of people at all times. And so the truth is that, like, most of us at some point in time are going to be considered members of the diverse group. If we are not already, in terms of age and ability, we probably will be at some point in our life considered in the othered group. And so I think it's really important. We take an intersectional approach, which is to say that all the layers of diversity matter. Sometimes in some places, you'll find that diversity is code just for whatever is trendy at the moment. Like, we want to be anti-racist. It's great to be anti-racist, but we want to make sure also that we're thinking about things like age and religion and ability and sexual orientation and all the things that make us who we are. We also, the embedded approach means kind of referring back to thinking about our embedded DEI committee. We want to change policies and processes when they're not fair and equitable, or when we just find a way we can be more inclusive. While there can be lots of great things about doing one training or celebrating a certain heritage month or something like that, those are important things, and we do those things. But we want to create change here that is kind of from the inside out, that, like, structurally we think about things before they need a reaction. We want to be responsive when we need to be responsive, but we also want to be preventative in terms of making all people feel included. So I think that's intersection, that's embedded. Embodied means that we want to understand that people exist as real humans with bodies. So we don't want to abuse bodies for the sake of DEI. Like sometimes people say, like, because we want things to be equitable, inclusive, we're going to make people do 100 hours of work a week. Well, from my perspective, that's not honoring the beautiful limitations of what it means to be a human. And also, though we want to do structural change, we also want people to have their own internal shifts around things like how to be a better worker, host for the people who are around us, community member, whatever role you take on. And then expansive means we take an approach here that is non-binary, that is non-dual, that's both and, whatever language suits you. Because we know that actually, like, in any given semester, I know as I'm sitting here, we are not perfectly exacting the most inclusive environment. To say that we were would be untruthful and ineffective, because if we think that we're doing something perfectly for every person, we are not striving to get better. We're not listening to the feedback that comes in. So I would say more practically, some of what we do to keep an equitable, inclusive environment is that we do listen to the voice of the people through things like listening sessions, assessments, and we try to be really responsive as we get new and changing data about what it is to be all kinds of shapes, sizes, culture, genders of human in this space.
Amazing. As you think about this space and the work that we do here in the Garland School, can you share a story of how DEI initiatives here have impacted a student or really a community?
Mm-hmm. You know, I was thinking about this question, and of course, I'm hesitant to speak on behalf of a group that I don't belong to. I mean, I hope that we've done things that make students who are neurodivergent have a more smooth and supported time here than they would in some other context. I hope that we have been a place that feels deeply hospitable for those who come here because of our Christian faith and who come here in spite of our Christian faith. So those are, I hope that that's true for anybody who comes here. What I can speak to from experience is that as a Black and biracial woman myself, with some of my marginalized identities, I have had a real healing, I would say. I have experienced a lot of healing at the Garland School, because when I bring these policy, process, and even interior trainings and requests and concerns up to my colleagues and to my students, I am overwhelmingly met with people who are soft. And I don't mean that to say everybody is meek or quiet necessarily, but I mean malleable. I mean open to changing the way that things are done if it means being kinder, more collaborative, more humble than we have been doing it. So for me, as someone who is in an institution that I didn't know when I came here whether or not people would be excited or on board for making changes for those who don't always have the megaphone, I have found this to be a community, both in person, online, that is willing to do the really painful and sometimes slow but meaningful work of real embedded change. And so what I can say is that I have heard a similar narrative from other students and colleagues who say it is refreshing to be at a place where when I bring something up and say, hey, this kind of policy doesn't necessarily seem like it has me in mind, or this thing that was said in class was really harmful to me because of this background that I have. I find that people generally get a listening ear and some willing hands to get to work about shifting. Now, whether that is the exact change that every single student or colleague wants, it's not always, but I think it's a huge healing for me to be with people who really do embody a spirit of cultural humility, saying like, I might not have everything right and I might have learning and growing to do, even if I've been working in social work for 50 years. That's really important, I think.
Yeah. Just reflecting on even my own experience being a part of the Garland School of Social Work. And it has been, to use your words, it has been so refreshing, so refreshing, to be a part of a community that really seeks, to embrace and care and support one another on not just out of a space of doing, or even duty, but from a posture of being human beings. And what it means to understand our very being and accepting one another and caring for one another, and accepting is a difficult word sometimes, but also just, to really belong and come alongside. And, such great work in, cultivating a culture, not just a community around that. And I'm reflecting on, just maybe neighboring institutions and universities and colleges where maybe diversity, equity, inclusion efforts may not be as represented. When I think about social work education and social work ethics, the Garland School of Social Work has such an opportunity to be able to engage in what it means to be a social worker that understands what it looks like to experience effective and thoughtful diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives that I believe is so essential to becoming an effective social worker.
Absolutely.
And so, Kerri, why is diversity, equity, and inclusion essential for preparing ethical and effective social workers?
Well, the first answer is really simple, which is that the Council of Social Work Educators and NASW tell us that we must.
Absolutely.
that social justice, diversity, cultural humility, non-discrimination, all of these things are kind of all over the documents that guide our profession and the education for this profession. So at a basic level, it's mandatory because social workers are going to be working with all kinds of people. Sometimes it's funny because, and I'll tell on myself. I was the sort of student who came into social work thinking like, I know exactly the type of clients I'm going to work with and nobody needs to tell me otherwise. And of course I ended up working with nothing like the population that I thought I was going to work with. So we have a generalist approach in social work for at least part of the training, which says when we graduate people, we are saying to the world, we believe that this person is equipped to work in a variety of settings with a variety of people and people groups. Now, they might choose to specialize in some population or some major social issue, but what really needs to happen is that everybody has the general capacity to not only engage with or tolerate difference, but to honor and to shift when necessary in honor of the differences of the different clients and colleagues and contexts that we have. So one thing is it's mandatory. I think at a institution that is interested in the virtues of the Christian faith, which are virtues shared by many faiths and worldviews, we have this additional desire, if not mandate, to welcome the stranger, whoever the stranger is to us, to defend anyone who is likely defending themselves, but might not be being listened to or treated with the kindness and hospitality that they should. We have these professional mandates, and we also have this set of moral guides that tell us that there's some value and some importance to co-laboring with people in what I'll call holy work, which is to say, work that has elements like humility and peace and courage that amplify what is just the sort of skeletal mandates that we have in things like the code of ethics in our particular context.
So good. For those of our community listening in and who find themselves exploring what it looks like to call the Garland School of Social Work a place that they hope to continue their education in the BSW or Masters in Social Work or whatever that may be, even the PhD. We hope that this has been refreshing, that this has been thoughtful, that this is giving you a glimpse of the work that we're doing, but the community that we also are. And so with that being said, our last question, Kerri, what advice would you give a prospective student exploring their career in social work at the Garland School?
Man, I love giving advice. And it was one of my least favorite things that I learned in school, that I wasn't really allowed to give advice as a social worker in like a clinical setting. So anytime I get a chance to give advice now, I'm like, yes.
Well, here's your chance.
I think my advice is to always try to seek out things that are comfortably uncomfortable. That's a jazzercise based learning that I had when I used to be a jazzercise instructor, which is to say, when we put ourselves in situations where there's nothing challenging about it to us, we're not really getting the maximum workout that we probably need and desire for healthy living. But also, if we are experiencing extreme pain in a place, that also probably isn't doing the thing that we think in terms of healthy living and practice. So I would encourage students to be noticing in their pursuit of figuring out where and how and what schooling they want to do and where and how to plug in at the Garland School. What is comfortably uncomfortable? What gives me the security that lets me feel like I have that secure base from which I can reach out to try new things? But then also, what is going to kind of topple me a little bit such that actual, like, learning, I think sometimes this comes as a surprise to students sometimes and to colleagues, because lately, and by that I mean like over several decades, learning in some spaces has become rote. Learning is struggle. Real learning means some amount of discomfort. And so that's what I would say is, like, ask yourself, what do I notice is making me comfortably uncomfortable, safe and daring? Because I think that will be a good litmus test for where you can do the most growth and the most good, maybe.
Kerri, thank you so much for taking the time and sharing about our community and what our everyday looks like here in the Garland School. This glimpse has been just so appreciative and looking forward to future conversations.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It was a delight.
That was such a powerful conversation. I just really, really appreciate just the things that we talked about and have so much to think about and process and really live out in my day-to-day. We're just so thankful for Kerri's leadership in the Garland School of Social Work when it comes to cultivating community and hospitality. Really appreciate Kerri for sharing her insights on how the Garland School is truly creating an ethical and inclusive learning environment.
Absolutely. The work being done here, from representation in the curriculum to programs that support students of all backgrounds, is shaping the future of social work in so many meaningful ways.
I appreciate Kerri's leadership and heart for our community. Embracing cultural intelligence, cultural competency, and cultural humility is critical and essential for the future of our humanity. This isn't just a professional mandate, it's a moral calling. Thanks for joining us on the Connecting with Care podcast. We'll see you next time.